devices are often geographically distributed. Resource is also constant, and they are physically exposed also. And they operate in dynamic environments, making them more vulnerable to cyber attacks. The authors in this paper highlighted three key challenges. The first one was intermittent connectivity. Many edge devices communicate only periodically. If a device reconnects after being offline for several days,
They operate
it
in
cannot be
dynamic
automatically
environments, making them
trusted
more
because it may
vulnerable to
have
cyber
been
attacks.
compromised during that time. The authors
And
in
the
this
second
paper
one is
highlighted
context
three key
change.
challenges. The
Network
first one
conditions,
was
workload,
intermittent
device roles,
connectivity.
and threat
Many edge
levels can change
devices
frequently,
communicate only
meaning
periodically. If a
trust
device
score assigned
reconnects after
yesterday
being
may
offline
no
for
longer
several
reflect
days,
the
they
devices
operate in
cannot be
dynamic
automatically
environments,
making
trusted
them more
because it may
vulnerable to
have
cyber
been
attacks.
compromised during that time.
Targeted
The
attacks
authors
and
in
the modern
modern
attackers
attackers
also
also
may
may
have
have been
compromised
compromised during
credentials.
insider threats, supply chain vulnerabilities, and lateral movements to move across trusted devices. As a result, traditional parameter based security is no longer sufficient because attacks can originate from within the network itself. Therefore, the authors propose that trust should be dynamic rather than static. Instead of assigning a fixed value, devices should be continuously evaluated based on their last behavior or latest behavior and security status. This is the key motivation behind this proposed dynamic trust scoring framework. After identifying these challenges, authors formally describe the problem they aim to solve. The central problem addressed in this paper is how to continuously evaluate the trustworthiness of devices in dynamic edge environments. Existing trust models often rely on static rules or fixed thresholds. For example, a device may be considered trustworthy simply because it has valid certificate. However, a valid certificate alone doesn't guarantee that the device is secure. It may still be running outdated software, exhibiting suspicious behavior, communicating abnormally, or remaining inactive for long periods. The authors identify three challenges in these. First was that static trust models are inactive because they cannot adapt to rapidly changing security conditions. Second was that edge environments are highly heterogeneous. Devices such as sensors, gateways, IoT devices, and core servers, they all are having different capabilities and security requirements. So they cannot be evaluated using the same criteria. And the third one was that edge devices have limited computational resources. Since they often have restricted processing power, memory, and battery life, trust evaluation must be lightweight while still providing accurate security assessments. Therefore, the challenge to develop a trust scoring system that is adaptive, context aware, computationally efficient, and capable of responding quickly to evolving threats. To address this problem, the authors defined four primary objectives for their proposed framework. The first objective was to develop a multi factor adaptive framework for trust scoring. Instead of relying on a single security indicator, the framework evaluates multiple factors, including device activity, patch status, security, certificate validity, and behavioral history. These factors are then combined using an adaptive weight based on the device type and its operational context. The second objective is to build a reproducible simulation environment that models realistic zero trust operations such as authentication, policy evaluation, access control, attack scenarios, and all. The third objective is to provide visualization and statistical analysis of trust score evolution. Rather than producing only a final trust score, the framework continuously tracks how trust changes over time, making it easier to detect both gradual degradation as well as the sudden attacks. Finally, the fourth objective is to ensure operational relevance. The proposed framework is designed to align with the NIST Zero Trust architecture and support practical deployment in real world edge environment. Together, these objectives establish a practical, adaptive, and context aware trust evaluation framework for a modern edge computing system. Now that we have discussed the motivation and objective, let's move on to the system architecture. This slide shows how dynamic trust scoring framework is integrated into a zero trust edge environment. Starting from the left, we have multiple edge devices such as sensors. surveillance cameras, industrial controllers, smart meters, other IoT devices. These devices generates data that needs to be securely transmitted through the network. Before any data reaches the edge gateway, it passes through a policy information point, PEP. According to the NIST Zero Trust architecture, the PEP act as a security gatekeeper. It intercepts every communication request and consults the policy engine, which uses the computed trust code to decide whether the request should be allowed, restricted, or denied. If the trust score meets the required security policy, communication proceeds. Otherwise, the system may deny the access and request additional authentication or isolate the device. After verification, the data reaches the edge gateway, where information from multiple devices aggregated and processed before being forwarded to the edge server, or maybe it will be the core server also. One thing you notice that communication between the gateway and the edge server or core server again passes through another policy enforcement point. This highlights a key principle of zero trust. That is, trust is verified continuously at every stage of communication, not just once during the login. Unlike traditional security models where devices are trusted after entering the network, this architecture continuously reassesses trust throughout the communication process. As a result, it significantly reduces the risk of compromised devices moving laterally within the network. The dynamic trust scoring framework consists of four major components that works together to evaluate trust device dynamically. Each component performs a special function. The first component is trust factor calculation. Second one is adaptive weight system. Third one is historical analysis. And the fourth one is visualization tool. Together, these four components create a complete dynamic trust evaluation system. The next slide introduces these four components in little more detail. Here, the four components are mentioned with a brief note like trust factor calculation computes time, patch, certificate, and behavior factor per device. Adaptive weight system adjusts factor importance by device type and network context. Historical analysis maintains rolling event and score history for forensic grade tracking. And visualization tool produces time series plots, bridging raw data and operator insight. Let's now explore each component individually, beginning with trust factor calculation. Trust factor calculation, this component forms the mathematical foundation of the entire framework. Rather than relying only on a single trust metric, the authors evaluated four independent security dimensions also. The first one was the time factor. This measures how recently the device communicated with the system. Devices that remain inactive for long periods gradually loses the trust because they may have been compromised while offline. The second one is the patch factor. That is one of the most common causes of cyber attacks. That is outdated software. Devices that regularly install security updates receive higher trust scores than devices running obsolete software versions. The third one is certificate factor. Digital certificates can be established. The established can establish device identity, but they are not fully validate now. This framework actually considers certificate validity, certificate type, and certificate expiration. Invalid or expired certificate immediately reduces the trust. As for the fourth factor, that is behavior factor. This is perhaps the most dynamic component. Instead of focusing only on technical configuration, it examines how the device actually behaves. It includes questions like does it authenticate successfully, or does it generate suspicious events? Is it communicate? Is its communication pattern consistent, or has its behavior suddenly changed? These behavioral observations are accumulated over time to identify emerging threats. An important advantage of this modular design is extensibility. If future security requirements introduces new trust indicators, for example, AI generated anomaly scores, they can be added without redesigning the entire framework. Once these individual trust factors are computed, the next should be the challenge. The next challenge should be determining how important each factor should be. One of the key innovations of this paper is this adaptive weight system. You may have seen that most traditional trust models assign fixed weights. For example, time might always contribute 25%, patch level always contribute 25%, behavior contributes another 25%. But this assumes every device has identical characteristics, which is not that much practical. In practice, that assumption is actually unrealistic. Consider two devices, a temperature sensor installed in a remote field and a gateway responsible for routing traffic for hundreds of devices. Is it fair that they should be evaluated using exactly the same trust model? Obviously not. The gateway represents a much more valuable target for attackers. Therefore, different trust factors become more or less important depending on the device. Sensors that place greater emphasis on recent activity. Gateways emphasizes certificate integrity and patch status. Core servers actually rely more heavily on behavioral consistency, while the devices operating inside the demilitarized zone or DMZ prioritize patch compliances because they are directly exposed to external threats. Another important aspect is operational context. Suppose the organization experiences an ongoing ransomware campaign exploiting unpatched systems. Administrators may temporarily increase the importance of patch status across all devices. Similarly, if insider threats become the dominant concern, behavioral analysis may receive higher or greater weight. Therefore, trust computation becomes flexible rather than rigid. This adaptability makes the framework much better suited for the real world cybersecurity environments. Trust scores are useful only if we can observe how they change over time. That brings us to historical analysis component. Security events rarely occur in isolation. Instead, attacks often develop gradually. A device may have normally behaved Mm, just normal behavior. A device is having normal behavior for weeks before slowly exhibiting suspicious behavior. Therefore, the framework stores historical information rather than relying solely on the latest event. The historical analysis components records trust scores, individual factor values, security events, authentication outcomes, and behavior history. Using this information, the system performs several important tasks. Firstly, it detects gradual trust degradation. A small degrees, a small decrease in trust may individually appear harmless, but together they can indicate a long-term compromise. Secondly, it identifies abrupt changes. For example, if a certificate suddenly become invalid or the device begins generating abnormal traffic, trust drops immediately. Thirdly, historical records support forensic investigations. Security analysts can review previous trust values to determine exactly when suspicious behavior began. Finally, the framework computes statistical measures such as average trust, minimum trust, maximum trust, and variance. These statistics provides a quantitative understanding of device reliability over extended periods. After calculating and storing trust scores, the final step is presenting this information in form of administrators, in form that administrators can easily understand. For that, the final component of framework is the visualization module. Although trust scores are numerical values, humans understand trends much more effectively through visual representations. Therefore, the system generates time series plots showing how trust evolves throughout device operation. These graphs helps administrators finding is trust gradually decreasing or did trust suddenly collapse after an attack? Which trust factor contributed most to the decline? Visualization also supports real-time monitoring here. Instead of examining thousands of log entries, operators can quickly identify unusual patterns through graphical dashboards. Another advantage is reporting. These visualization can be stored for compliance audits, incident response documentation, or forensic investigations. Finally, because the visualization module is independent of trust computation engine, it can easily integrate with existing security information and event management system, that is SIEM platforms, providing centralized monitoring for enterprise security teams. Like in common words or other words, this component bridges the gap between complex mathematical trust calculation and practical operational decision making. Now we have reached the most important part of this paper, that is trust factor algorithm, the computation process itself. Until now, we have discussed what the framework consists of. This section explains how trust is actually calculated. Rather than assigning a static trust value, the author designs a modular pipeline that continuously updates the trust as a new event occurs. And this process begins with input events generated by edge devices. These events may include activities such as user authentication, data transmission, software updates, certificate validation, system logs, network communications, anomalies that are detected, and many others. These raw events are then sent to the trust factor calculation module. Here, the system computes four independent trust factors: time, patch, certificate, and behavior. And then comes the adaptive weight system. Instead of treating every factor equally, the framework adjusts their importance according to device type, deployment environment, and operational context. Once the weighted factors are obtained, they are combined into a single numeric trust score. Finally, this trust score is used for output analysis. The output is not simply stored, it is actively used by zero trust policies to determine whether the device should continue operation normally, or it can undergo additional verification, or it should receive restricted permissions or be denied access completely. Next, an important feature shown at the bottom of the figure is that feedback loop. This framework continuously learns from historical observations. As device behavior changes over time, trust weights and scores are updated accordingly. That's the work of the feedback loop. This continuous adaptation distinguishes dynamic trust scoring from conventional rule based trust systems. Having understood the overall pipeline, let's examine the first trust factor, that is time factor. The underlying intuition is very simple. A device has communicated recently is generally more trustworthy than a device that has remained silent for several days or weeks. Long periods of inactivity increases uncertainty. During that time, the devices might have been compromised or disconnected unexpectedly, or it might have been tampered physically, or experienced software failures. Therefore, trust should be gradually decreases as inactivity increases. Here, the authors in this model they use the exponential decay equation. Uh, Here, the variables are actually representing the t representing the elapsed time since the device last communicated, and the lambda is called the decay rate. It controls how quickly trust decreases. If the lambda is large, trust decreases rapidly, or if the lambda is small, trust decreases more slowly. Then, why did the authors choose an exponential function instead of a straight line? That's a very common question. Um Simple, because exponential decay models uncertainty more naturally. Initially, trust decreases slowly. However, after long period of inactivity, the decrease becomes much more significant. This reflects real-world cybersecurity. Missing communication for a few minutes is usually acceptable, but missing communication for several weeks is much more suspicious. For example, imagine a smart electricity meter that reports reading every hour. Uh, if it suddenly stop reporting for 5 days, administrators should become suspicious. Whether when the device reconnects, zero trust should not automatically trust it. No? Instead, its trust score has already decreased because of the prolonged inactivity. This allows the system to detect dormant or hijacked devices before granting them unrestricted access. And time is alone not sufficient. Even an active device may still be insecure if it is running outdated software. Therefore, next factor contains software maintenance. That is patch factor. The second trust component evaluates the device's patch status. One of the most common causes of cybersecurity incident is delayed software updates. You guys may have seen that when you don't update your laptop up to the latest version, your laptop might hang while using multiple programs or context switching. In between the context switching, it might hang. This is all because of the patch factor. Until you update your laptop to the latest version, it will not work that much efficiently. Their vulnerabilities become publicly known every day. Once attacker discovers an unpatched system, they can exploit it within us. Therefore, devices that remain fully updated should receive higher trust. Here, the author used this equation uh, in which there are three variables where P actually represents the device's patch level ranging from 1 to 10. 10 actually corresponds to the fully updated device instead of increasing linearly. And the authors has used an exponent of 1.5. This creates a non-linear reward function. This is actually very useful because missing the latest security updates often introduces disproportionality larger risks. For example, a device with patch level 9 should not be considered almost identical to one with the patch level 10. Why? That final update may contain a critical security fix. Therefore, the equation penalizes outdated devices more aggressively, and this encourages administrators to keep systems continuous updated rather than accepting almost current software version. Like not 9, it must be 10. This factor reflects one of the core principle of the modern cybersecurity. That is, patch management is one of the simplest yet most effective security control. While software updates protects against vulnerabilities, again, zero trust must also verify the identity of devices. That brings us to the certificate factor. Digital certificate may play a fundamental role in establishing trust score between communicating devices. Like a certificate verifies that a device is genuinely who it claims to be. However, not all certificate provides the same level of assurance. The proposed certificate factor combines three important considerations that are certificate validity, certification expiration, and certificate type. The equation is mentioned here, that is zero point 0.7 into expiry plus zero point 0.3 into type. Here you can notice that expiry contributes 70% of the score while the certification type contributes 30%. This means certificate validity is considered more important than certificate origin. The framework distinguishes between certificate issued by trust certificate authorities and self-signed certificates. Like self-signed certificates generally receive lower trust because they provide weaker identity assurance. Another important feature is certificate expiration. Like certificate approaching expiration gradually loses the trust. Most importantly, if the certificate becomes invalid, this factor immediately becomes zero. This represents a very strict security policy. Even if the device behaved normally yesterday, an invalid certificate immediately reduces its trust. Later, when we examine the adversarial scenarios, we'll observe that certificate revocation contributes significantly to the sudden trust decline after compromise. The previous three factors focus mainly on device configuration, but the next factor evaluates something much more dynamic, that is, the actual behavior of the device. The behavioral factor is arguably the most intelligent part of this framework, as far as I have read. Uh, Instead of evaluating only technical configuration, it asks different questions also. Which is mentioned here, where S represents the success rate, A represents the anomaly score, and C represents the behavioral consistency. Let's understand each of the variables. Like success rate, what is that? It actually measures how often normal operations succeed. For example, successful authentication, successful communication, successful raw data transmission. Higher success rate increases trust. Both success rate and trust are directly proportional to each other. And then anomaly score. It measures abnormal activities, which can include the failed authentication, unexpected communication, suspicious packet generation, or unusual login attempts, or abnormal traffic patterns. The more the anomalies, the less the trust. Both are inversely proportional to each other. And finally, consistency. Consistency evaluates whether the device behaves regularly or not. Most legitimate devices operate according to predictable schedules. For example, an environmental sensor may send readings every 5 minutes. Suddenly transmitting hundreds of messages every second would actually represent inconsistent behavior. And the consistency score captures exactly this kind of deviation. These three components are combined using coefficients alpha, beta, and gamma, whose sum equals 1. These coefficients determine how much each behavioral characteristic contributes to the final score. Among all four trust factors, this one changes most rapidly during attacks. As we will see in the experimental results, once a device becomes compromised, behavioral trust begins to decline before many other indicators. This makes behavioral analysis extremely valuable for early attack detection. Once all individual factors are computed, the next question becomes, how are we gonna combine them? How are we going to combine them? Here comes the adaptive weighting. The authors combine individual trust factors using an adaptive weighting mechanism. The formula is here, where although the equation actually appears a bit complicated, the underlying idea is very straightforward. We begin with the base weight vector that is represented by omega naught. This contains the default importance assigned to each trust factor. The framework adjusts these weights according to the device type, represented by MD, and the operational context, that is represented by the MC. And the symbol here denotes element-wise multiplication. Finally, all weights are normalized. Normalization ensures that all weights sum to 1, preventing trust scores from exceeding their intended ranges. But why is this adaptive weight important? Same, because different situation requires different security priorities. During routine operations, behavior is predictable and predictability matters more than flexibility. This flexibility allows the same trust framework to operate effectively across a wide range of edge deployments. And finally, we will see how all these components come together to produce the final trust score. Here is the formula which is used to calculate the final trust computation, where S certificate validity, where S is the where S is the overall trust score. Factor. Each weight reflects the adaptive importance determined by the previous algorithm, and the table below the equation shows the default configuration used in the simulation, like for time factor 0.3, patch factor 0.3, certificate factor 0.2, and behavior factor 0.2. We can notice that the time and patch receive slightly greater importance than the certificate and behavior under the default configuration. And on the right, the author summarizes the entire process using the pseudocode. First, each trust factor is calculated individually. Next, adaptive weights are determined. And finally, all weighted factors are summed to produce the final trust score. And one important advantage of this modular design is extensibility. That is, if future research introduces additional trust indicators, they can be simply added as a new factor without redesigning the overall mechanisms. This modularity makes the proposed framework scalable and adaptable for future zero trust system. Please just give me a minute.
Any issue related to this? Is there any technical glitch?
So just 1 minute, network connectivity is not
Okay,
right.
okay.
Okay, sorry for the glitch. Then we can come up to the results section, like simulation setup and real world modeling, to evaluate this whole dynamic trust scoring under conditions like reflecting practical zero trust deployments. The whole environment was there was a detailed simulation for the models, authentications, policy evaluations, access controls, and security event generations that are mentioned here. Like zero trust operations were done, timing and success rates were uh, calculated, trust and risk modeling were done, where device trust and user risk scores drive policy based access decisions were taken. The network and workload and the reproducibility were calculated, and then whole modeling of zero trust operations where, as per as I said earlier, that authentication, policy evaluation, access control, and security event generation processes were involved. That was a true zero trust system end to end, from authentication to security event generation. Then the timing and success parameters, where the authentication time, policy evaluation time, and access control time were calculated. These all were the parameters that are grounded in industry benchmark and public reports, uh, that are totally concept based. These factors affects the results, but the whole important thing, where important findings of the paper relies here, that is how trust score evolve over time for two representative devices, like a normal sensor and a compromised sensor. Let's first examine the graph on the left. This represents a normal sensor operating under expected conditions. Notice that the trust score remains constantly high throughout the simulation. There are only very small fluctuations which are expected because network conditions and operational events naturally vary. However, the overall trust remains close to zero point 0.9, indicating that the device behaves consistently and maintains valid certificates, and stay patched, and communicates regularly. Now let's compare this with the graph on the right. Like the graph represents an adversarial scenario. Like initially, the trust score behaves similarly to the normal device. However, after the simulation compromisation, the trust score drops sharply. And why? Why does this happen? Just because several trust scores deteriorate simultaneously. The device begin exhibiting abnormal behavior. Certificates validity may have been revoked, or patch status gradually worsens. Behavioral consistency may be decreased. Instead of relying only on one indicator, the framework captures multiple security degradations occurring together. The table below summarizes the statistics. Like for the normal sensor, the final trust score is approximately 0.896 with a very small standard deviation. This indicates stable and reliable behavior. But in contrast, the compromised sensor finishes with a trust score is approximately 0.45, and its standard deviation is also much higher, reflecting unstable and suspicious behavior. This demonstrates one of the key strengths of proposed framework. That is, it continuously tracks trust evolution rather than making isolated security decisions. In practical edge computing environments, not every device serves as the same purpose. Like therefore, the authors also compare trust characteristics across multiple devices, including gateways, core servers, sensors, and IoT devices. This is as shown in the figure and corresponding statistics. Gateway devices maintain the highest trust score. This is expected because gateways typically receive frequent software updates, strong security policies, better hardware, and stricter administrative controls. But core servers also maintain high trust values because they represents critical infrastructure requiring continuous monitoring. Sensors show slightly low trust scores. This is not necessarily because they are insecure. Rather, sensors often operate in remote environments with intermittent communication and limited computational capabilities. And finally, IoT. IoT devices exhibit the lowest average trust. Again, this reflects reality. Like many IoT devices have limited processing power, irregular patch updates, constrained security features, and diverse deployment conditions. Therefore, the proposed framework naturally differentiates between device categories instead of assigning identical trust expectations to every device. This adaptive evolution is one of the primary contributions of this paper. Beyond overall trust, the authors also investigate which trust factor contributes most significantly to the trust changes. Like the authors observe that not all trust factors are equal. Some remains relatively stable while others respond rapidly to the attacks. Like time factor. Time factor remains relatively stable for normally functioning devices because regular communication continues throughout the simulation. But the certificate factor also remains constantly high as long as certificate remains valid. However, once a certificate becomes invalid or revoked, this factor immediately drops, causing a significant reduction in overall trust. Then comes patch factor, which changes more gradually. Devices do not suddenly become unpatched. Instead, trust decreases progressively as software becomes outdated. And finally, the behavior factor that exhibits the largest abnormal authentication failures, suspicious communications, and inconsistent activity rapidly reduces the behavioral trust. This demonstrates an important property of the framework that it doesn't depend solely on static device configuration. Instead, it actively observes how the device behaves over time. This makes the framework capable of detecting attacks even when the traditional identity mechanisms alone might fall. The authors concluded that combining multiple independent trust factors provide much stronger security than relying only on a single metric. The authors concluded that the proposed dynamic trust scoring framework successfully addresses the several important challenges in zero trust edge security. Firstly, the framework continuously evaluates device trust then assigning static trust values. Secondly, it combines multiple complementary security indicators that are at the same time patch status, security, certificate, and behavioral analysis. Thirdly, the adaptive weighting that allows the same framework to support heterogeneous edge environments where different devices require different security priorities. And most importantly, the experimental results demonstrate that the framework effectively distinguishes between normal and compromised devices. Normal devices maintain consistently high trust, while compromised devices experiences rapid trust degradation. Therefore, the framework supports dynamic policy enforcement, which aligns closely with the core philosophy of zero trust architecture. And although the proposed framework demonstrates, sorry, the future work is also here. Although the proposed framework demonstrates promising performance, the authors also acknowledges several opportunities for future environment improvement. Like the current work relies primarily on simulation. Future research should integrate the framework into real enterprise or industrial edge environments. And also, the author proposes incorporating edge AI techniques to further improve adaptive trust evaluation. And future versions of framework could include more advanced attacker and defender models also. Finally, performance and scalability studies are needed for very large deployment involving thousands or even millions of edge devices. Such studies would demonstrate how efficiently dynamic trust scoring performs under production scale conditions. Before I conclude, I'd like to summarize the key takeaways of this paper. Like the rapid growth of edge computing has fundamentally changed how cybersecurity must be approached. Traditional parameters based security is no longer sufficient because modern attacks frequently originate from compromised internal devices. As for zero trust, addresses this challenge by continuously verifying every access request. However, effective zero trust requires reliable methods for continuously evaluating trust. Overall, this paper contributes a practical dynamic trust scoring framework that combines multiple security indicators, including time, software patch status, security certificate validity, and behavioral analysis, into a unified trust score. Through adaptive weighting, historical analysis, and continuous monitoring, the framework successfully distinguishes normal devices from compromised ones. Although currently validated through simulation, the proposed methodology provides a strong foundation for further future zero trust systems operating in industrial IoT, smart cities, or autonomous vehicles, healthcare, and other mission critical edge applications. Overall, this paper demonstrates that trust should not be viewed as a fixed property, but as a dynamic quantity that evolves continuously with device behavior and operational context. Thank you for your attention. Now you can ask questions.
I first give you a big thank you for a nice presentation for this particular paper, and it was actually a very good presentation. It seems to us flawless, though the people might have some questions regarding that particular topic, and if any other people have some question, you can also tell over here. If you are actually unable to tell that thing, you can write over in the chat box and ask the question to the speaker. Any
So,
question?
firstly, I would like to answer those questions which are already in the chats.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I have that some questions, and just some of them are actually very basic. One is from your formula, what you have shown. That
Yes, sir.
formula actually the question. How the lambda value, what exactly you were showing. This is how this lambda value you are actually calculating. The author is calculating. Is there any explanation of that one?
No, sir. Actually, they didn't measure it directly. The lambda is actually chosen based on how quickly an organization wants to trust to decay for inactive devices. Like this one is done using historical communication data, device reporting frequency, and or not and or organization security policies. According to those rules, that lambda value is
Being estimated over there.
measured.
This is in a simulation actually they have done, and from the simulation they have taken some value for different multiple values might they have taken.
Yes, sir. Totally simulation based. And as per the y exponent is 1.5 in patch factor, that was I actually explained that that was because significant growths, like suppose you are having a device inactive for 1 day, that may affect less. But what if that device is showing that behavior significant means regularly? That small changes makes a big change. That's why
I understand that one. My question is basically a patch factor is clear to me. Once actually your system is getting updated regularly, that might be used, and there might have some less chance of some kind of attack from those devices. That I understand. My question is specifically that why the 1.5? Why not the 2? Why not the 3? Is there any explanation?
So that it can create a non-linear function.
So if you're going for the 2 also or 3 also, that will be a non-linear also. Is there any explanation provided in the paper that why 1.5 is explicitly actually being used into this net system? Let's say, for example, for the other factors, what actually they are actually mentioning the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, all those. Why the 1.5 for this patch factor is being used?
Sir, 1.5 here is not defined or justified as an optimal value. It is just an empirical design parameter that is chosen to balance, balance the sensitivity and stability of the device.
No, but I'm very serious about this particular point.
It can be.
Value could be if you are actually telling the non-linear, then could be the 2 is a good value. With a higher value, it could be there. But I'm basically interested to, if you're, this is not for this paper I'm telling, but everywhere else I see the paper and if I find that the value is some particular hard-coded value is given over there, and there is no specific justification, there is a definitely a question.
Yes, sir. You said no,
So
it is hard coded just because it is on the formula is actually based on the simulation. The
I understand. That means when actually they are going for the simulation, they might have gone for the 2, they might have gone for the 2.5, they might have gone for the 1.25 also. Why 1.5 has been written over there? There must some particular clarification of that one. Is it there? You look into that one.
No, sir. The
Later,
clarification
you
is
take
not
it
there,
offline,
but
no problem at all. But there should be the point. I'm basically emphasizing this particular point in front of all of you, just to make you understand that whenever you are writing the paper, do not write some explicit values without any justification. Once you do that one, this would be a big question for every reviewer. Okay,
yes.
so this is a very important question. Second question, actually, I was trying to understand. This model is very good one. Yeah, it's a dynamic trust scoring method is there, which is actually scoring, giving the score to the devices. Okay, one thing is that are they actually able to handle the zero-day attack with this zero trust model? What exactly they are telling?
So partially they can, but not completely.
Not completely.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the system is a centralized system, right? Centrally, the values are actually of those all those devices. Trust value is being calculated.
No, sir. Actually, it is not fully centralized. It is actually edge architecture. No.
I understand. Edge is basically the one node, actually, So edge is actually the one node. Means now where the algorithm is running, that is actually my question. Where the algorithm is running, is it distributed to every system, or it is a one single unit, one single computation unit is there, which is calculating the trust value of all of them, and it's being disseminated to them?
So, like you wanna ask, where is the trust score computed, right?
Yes. That algorithm is computed where?
Sir, it is done through the PEPs, like PEPs. What are the policy enforcement points?
That means definitely a central point is there in this entire architecture. I think so.
But this paper states that it is not a centralized system, but instead of that, it is an edge computing system.
No, I understand that one. Now, my question is a little bit of different. I'm trying to understand that whether the algorithm is running in every edge devices or not to compute your trust. Let's say, for example, my system is running over there. I'm an edge device. I have an edge device that is running a system and is following that particular algorithm and estimating its own trust value. Is it that?
That would cover all the edge cases.
Definitely. That means I'm telling that this computation is done in every systems, every edge devices. Okay. Then it is a distributed system. Okay. And how you are actually ensuring the trust value that is being computed on one system, one particular edge device, it's basically a legitimate one. Is it clear to my question?
No, sir, actually. Can you please repeat?
Okay, so take this particular question offline. Okay, and try to look into this particular thing. This is now this work is a very good work, but I actually have some particular points to raise over here. All those, if it is a centralized, if it is a centralized, then definitely it's a 1-point failure. If it's that particular device is failed. That means its fate of this entire system will be dependent on that particular one system, where the computation of this particular trust score, which you are actually telling the dynamic one, that are being calculated.
So for that, each of the factors are having multiple sub factors. Like even if we are just calculating the trust factors, there are multiple factors like time factors.
I understand that trust computation. What from the factors by which they are actually calculating the trust? That are nice one. I am not actually going to take that one. I'm just trying to understand that algorithm where it is running, whether the algorithm is running in a particular centralized server and disseminating the trust code to all those other edge devices, where it is being identified this is a legitimate one or not, the activities are legitimate one or not, that actually being taken care of. Or it is actually a decentralized one where the computations are done actually in the every systems, then definitely another question will come arise over there. If it is an absolutely the trust value is calculated in every device, how do you ensure the legitimacy of that particular trust computation? That could be, your device could be in some compromise situation, then the trust computation will work. Are you getting me? So there are two way actually you have the question. If you are telling the centralized one, you have some question. You are telling the if it is completely decentralized, there is also some question. Okay, how it is being managed? That you look into that thing. Might be they have told that thing, or if it is not told, then definitely it is an option for us to work on this particular domain. Okay, so this is the two questions. And is there any temporal study of this trust core? How over the period of the time trust evolves over this particular system?
So for that, historical analysis has been done, like the past behavior of the device to update the trust score according to the latest events. And as for the centralized system and decentralized system, I would like to try to answer it.
Okay, I'm just going into the deep of this one. Temporal study. Temporal study means I'm basically trying to understand not that the event happened due to that you are calculating the trust, not that one. I'm trying to tell that the trust value of for a particular, for example, for a device, it was you're telling the zero trust, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, zero trust. Zero trust means you do not have the trust on this particular device. Clear? That
Yes.
means from all those components from where you are calculating the trust, that becomes zero at the very beginning. How the trust value is evolving on the interaction, that I need to know. That is there a study has been done by them extensively?
No, sir, temporal study for that.
They haven't done, no?
No, sir.
Okay, so take these 2 points, very important one from this particular thing. I think that this work is very aligned to our URL trust work.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this work is worthy one. These are a direction they have shown. There is a worthy one, but these two questions, two major questions, are actually making this entire paper absolutely in a wrong situation. If they are not able to answer these questions, then definitely this paper contribution is limited one. Okay.
Yes.
So I definitely read out the question of Shayan. He's asking that how zero trust is being calculated.
So here the zero trust is actually calculated based on 4 factors. Again, the same time factor, patch factor, and certificate factor, and behavior factor. All these factors are computed by using the concept of adaptive weight. And so the centralized system, which you said here, the adaptive weight synchronization system, which is here, it can be act as the centralized part of the whole trust computing. Like if it fails, the whole system might fail and fail in obtaining the trust score.
Okay, so from the science questions, what exactly he is asking he might be thinking in that way. What exactly I'm trying to tell you, that zero trust means is it a zero value of the trust? That means all those factors are actually concluding a value to zero, or it's some particular threshold has been kept over there. Below that one, it is actually considered as a zero trust.
So it is a type.
Like I think that there are multiple factors. Now you are telling that many factors, patch factor and all those behavioral factors, so many certificate factors are there. So I think that it should not be zero absolutely for any device.
No, okay, sir, not zero value.
Not zero. So definitely there should be some threshold value. Beyond that, it would be considered as a zero trust, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that could be. And I think that Shayan is actually trying to understand that what is the meaning of this zero. Okay, zero trust. Okay, he's asking the another question. If you want to implement in a real life, how it can be done? Okay, yeah. Zero value is not possible. What exactly I'm telling over here might be the concept what exactly I am telling. There should be some particular threshold value. Below that one of the trust score is can be considered as a zero trust. Okay.
Right, and also like he told like for the trust computing, they have the four types of different measurements, right? So
Yes.
what is the percentage of the 4%? Like we'll take four of the equation as equally, or anyone has more preceding over other one.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a very, very important question.
for that also, there was mentioned that the importance of all the factors should be calculated on different values, like how wait, let me get through the presentation also. It
Mr.
was,
I think that
How
Bhanu,
you
you
are
told
calculating the different values? Like if for one organization, like the time will be the more presiding, like number one rank or
no,
anything.
Shayan, I think that what exactly he is trying to tell and already presented over there, Mindra, it is basically the specific scenario, meaning in which context that which factor should have an importance one, right? So, in which context, which particular factor is the important one? Based on that distribution of this one, Mindra, let's say, for example, four factors are there: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Factors are there, which is actually the weight of these all those different components that are being integrated into one. Okay,
Hmm.
and that is scenario based. That's why might be more they are telling in the dynamic one. They are actually claiming it as a dynamic one. The
Okay, but
scenario
there is
based
also
trust calculation is there too.
yes, but there is also one core problem. Like let's assume one attacker is going to attach with the network, and we just take some value. We know like we have in the central server, the task computing system is running with alpha, beta, gamma, delta, four values, and if we anyhow total threshold value is up to some particular mark like zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.6 whatever, it will be treated as a trusted computing. Then, if I let assume it is a completely external system, and inside of that, we just make some change in the time composition. Like we just modify the time or modify some of the two parameters and make it more than 40% or make more than the threshold value. Then it will be treated as a trusted computing. Then how we are encounter this kind of scenario.
okay, first of all, the thresholds are not defined. There is just a line about it that Mm, actually, there is no threshold. Only computed trust score exceeds a resource specific or policy defined threshold that was mentioned. And as for the scenario which you have given, that would might be answered using behavior factor, like how the success rates are happening, how the anomaly score. Like even if the trust value is skyrocketed simply just in a second or instantly, that would also be marked as an anomaly. Not that also cannot be taken as a credit to the trust score value. That might be the answer to your question.
Okay. Is there any other question from the any other one? Okay. So I should conclude the session over here. And before the concluding this particular session, I am I'm basically trying to tell 2 to 3 points to other audience who are actually at the right now in the final year BTech projects we are doing in our research lab, and you people and many of your group. What exactly I have the data. The many of your group are actually working on the any specific kind of security system development. Okay, so I think that you people take much initiative on the on this particular reading session when the topic kind of this kind of topic are being discussed over there. I understand one very important thing that all of you are actually telling to me. Some of you are not actually able to connect us properly that what exactly the discussion going on, and you are not actually relate that particular thing. I understand completely that one. It means our knowledge level might not be up to that standard to discuss and throw some questions and also interact into this particular discussion. But one thing you do, you people do? This is a reading session, right? So what exactly you do? You come and ask silly questions, and at least the 10 points are being discussed in this kind of reading session. If you are present over there, at least 1 point, if you are actually able to understand and relate you in your work, then definitely it would be helpful for you. Okay, that is why you should definitely be present every week the reading session. Okay, one more thing, that is the people, those who are actually presenting over there, they are our peers, right? In this particular research lab, the peoples are presenting, that those peoples are your peers. Might not, I mean, you can think that's in the same group, so you are peers. Okay, might be 1 year senior presenting, 2 years senior presenting, or my PhD students is presenting. No, no problem at all. You just try to follow them. You can ask them for mentorship too. Okay, I will actually give you the mentors in your group. Okay, and actually I'll be listing the the name of the mentors and their expertise in all those from the industry, those who are working, my alumni, those who are working in the industry, and the people, those who are right now just passed from the institute. Many either by undergraduates, they have graduated from Techno India University or any other university, and also some people, those who are completing their masters and doing the PhD. Okay, so you can find them, their expertise in our website. Okay, later on there will be there in our MindSpec Research Lab website. You will be finding their names enlisted over there, and their contact numbers and email IDs. You people can directly reach out to this particular people and get some help in your research too. Okay, so this is an opportunity. Use that one and explore that what exactly you need to do in your final year. Because the last year, the people, those who have completed their BTech, they have done a very, very good job. Published multiple papers, got the job in the multinational companies. Multiple people is doing their further study in your higher studies in pre-doctoral fellowships got by some particular student. Some of them are trying in the masters, and also got some of them the offer from the masters. So you people take take this particular thing and explore your opportunity, and I'm sure that you people will get a success over there. Okay, and we will be in upcoming days. We'll be telling that what are the research access will be dealt by MindSpec Lab, and one of the major domain is your security domain. And currently there are many different topics. The people, those who are actually right now in the final year, those who are doing the different kinds of security work, they get in touch with Bhanu Barrier and Shayan Mandal. I'll be listing their name in the in our mentor list, and with their contact number and your email ID and their email ID. You people get in touch with them for any kind of query, any kind of discussion. You can contact with them and discuss that. Okay. With this note, I'm concluding this session. Thank you very much for joining this particular session, and regularly keep your mind that every week 12:30 Saturday you will be coming into this particular reading session. Thank you very much. I'm closing the session right away. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Thank you.